Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today, as this is a Monday podcast episode where we look at a particular astrological topic or theme. And today we're going to discuss the rare energy of transiting Chiron, making an exact conjunction with the transiting North Node. This occurs on February 19th at 16 degrees 45 minutes of Aries in your chart. And this is one of those rare conjunctions because both of these energies are in motion. We have the transiting energy of Chiron matching up with the transiting nodes of fate, which are related to our cycles of growth and advancement, as well as completions and ending outdated cycles. So when we have two transiting planets that move at different speeds, making a conjunction, there's something special here. There's something important that you're meant to be aware of. And in fact, you already could be aware of something that maybe you've been struggling with, pushing away, fighting with internally, because the energy is in Aries, which is the sense of self, your self-identity. And there could be something that you've already had in motion, you've already been working through, that this particular conjunction is highlighting for you as a way forward. Now, I am going to break down the pieces of this even more in today's show, but those are some general understandings of what this transiting energy is already bringing up. And in fact, not only has it been in motion now since the end of December, which is when Chiron stationed direct at 15 degrees of Aries. That occurred on December 26th. Now they're actually going to continue an energy that moves us towards eclipse season. And that's because not only do we have transiting Chiron conjunct the North Node at 16 degrees 45 minutes of Aries on February 19th, well, Chiron moves ahead and will be exactly conjunct the Sun and the Moon at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries on April 8th. So these degree points in your chart, your natal chart, where you have between 16 and 19 degrees of Aries, is where Chiron is on a very important journey of self-discovery, new awareness, tapping into more of who you really are, as well as your potential of knowing yourself, not only from a more healed perspective, but a more enlightened perspective, a more spiritual understanding of your energy and who you are in this lifetime. So this is big Chiron energy for the collective, as well as for each of us individually, especially if you have planets or points between 16 to 19 degrees of the fire signs. That would be Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, as well as 16 to 19 degrees of the cardinal signs, which include Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So this is where we basically play astrology bingo. You look at your chart and see what you have between 16 to 19 degrees of those astrology signs. And yes, we can add in the air signs. If you have any planets or points between 16 to 19 degrees of Gemini or Aquarius, then this is also working with you more personally. So this conjunction will be exact at 16 degrees, 45 minutes of Aries. Again, that's the true North Node that I'm looking at here. But it's actually unfolding over the course of several months. And this can certainly help with what you're understanding about yourself at this time in your journey. Now, Chiron in Aries is unraveling and removing overactive ego energies, anything that you feel you have to prove, like you have to be the best, the most competitive, you've got to be number one. Chiron comes through and actually dismantles that so that you can connect with more of the core of who you are in your true essence. And so this can bring up a sense of confusion around who you thought you were, what you thought you were doing, and even how you felt comfortable being in your own skin. Well, Chiron actually wants you to soften into more of yourself, to allow those vulnerabilities and those soft parts to come up and be seen so that your frequency can really blossom from a place of authenticity. And it isn't something that you do for others. It isn't something that's about what others think or their opinions or their thoughts. When we're looking at this intense focus on Aries, you do it for yourself. You do it in your own way, on your own terms, and you're trusting that there is more within you to discover and open up to, even though that could feel like something is a trigger, is a wound. It shows you perhaps an area of yourself where you didn't feel competent. You weren't sure you could do that thing. It can stir up feelings around independence and the courage to be yourself, the courage to just be who you are without needing approval or acceptance, without needing others to validate or affirm that. And because this is what Chiron in Aries brings up, therefore you could have wounds exactly around this theme, exactly around what you thought you were versus understanding more of who you truly are. Now, this Chiron energy can also have us searching for something, searching for more, searching for parts of ourselves that we unconsciously abandoned, rejected, pushed away. Perhaps parts of ourselves that we said, nope, that doesn't fit within this self-concept of what I want to be or how I know myself. Nope, this doesn't fit. That looks like an insecurity. That makes me look weak if I were to be that version of myself or to bring that in to my own self-identity. And so the Chiron in Aries is actually asking us to look at, where have you abandoned parts of yourself through whatever experiences, events, or situations you've had in your life, and you're realizing, no, that's actually really precious. That's a very precious part of who I am. And I'm going to pull it in closer. I'm going to bring that part of myself in, hold it, love it, accept it. And that can be very moving. This can be very emotional because you could be looking at yourself with new eyes. You could be afraid of what that Chiron stirs up because of the vulnerability within that we can easily push away or distract ourselves from. Perhaps we just want to stay busy, which is an Aries thing. It's like instead of sitting here in the discomfort of something that feels painful, maybe it stirs up anger and impatience. Maybe it's something you just don't want to deal with. Well, there's 1,000,001 ways these days to focus on something else, right? Grab your phone and start scrolling. And yet there's an intentionality here with Chiron and Aries that we can't avoid. And as this Chiron makes a conjunction to the North Node, it is a new pathway forward. It is a new chapter in your healing journey. It's a new level of self-awareness around more of who you really are. This could definitely bring you into your root chakra. This could bring you into parts of yourself that haven't fully matured, that maybe were shut down, especially in childhood. And that's because Aries, the archetype of Aries, is the infant, the toddler. In Tarot, it's the fool. It's the beginning of a journey. It's just getting started in life and figuring out, who am I in this big world? And so there could have been something that was closed down when you were younger, and it could have happened through a very painful experience. A traumatic experience, a crisis. Aries can be violence and anger and outbursts. It could have been something done to you that was detrimental to your sense of self. It could have been something you experienced energetically that you didn't have the tools to work with or work through. And this actually brings up something that I think is important here, is that parents, we often will say, oh, kids are resilient. Oh, kids will get through. Oh, kids will figure it out and they'll keep going. And I feel like that's such a cop-out. That's such a simple way to not take energetic responsibility for knowing who the child is. And as we are evolving in our consciousness, more parents are energetically tuning in to their child by looking at their astrology chart, understanding who they are, if they're highly sensitive, if they're an empath, whatever their skills or gifts may be. But let's go back in time, and maybe you grew up with parents who just expected you to deal with the trauma, the crisis, because they were in it too, right? They were going through something that was big for their energy. But the truth is, kids are in survival. Kids are just doing whatever they need to do in the environment that they're in. They don't have the communication skills or the tools to handle it otherwise. And so, yeah, kids are resilient because that's a survival mechanism. And then 20, 30 years later, when they're sitting down and we're talking to a counselor or a therapist, it all comes up. All the ways we had to be resilient, all the ways we had to just deal with things in our environment because there wasn't anyone tending to our emotional self, tending to what we were feeling. They weren't understanding maybe your moon sign, your Mars. They weren't understanding your chart and what you needed, whatever the case might be. So this is where Chiron in Aries can bring up anger around what you needed that you didn't get. And it severely damaged understanding who you are now. And that's been your journey to reclaim that, especially for the millions of people right now who are realizing that they are highly sensitive, that they are an empath, that they're very intuitive, that they came in wide open to all this energy, just open to connections and wanting to be loved and wanting to participate and show up. And then that got shut down out of life experiences, global energies, things happening when you were growing up in childhood, through the school system, through sports, activities, whatever it might be. And of course, especially within the nuclear family and your parents and siblings, all of that contributed. And here we have this beautiful turning point of energies for you to really look at not only what you've been healing and understanding about who you are now, but the universe is bringing in a new gift for that healing journey as Chiron is conjunct the North Node. Understand that if it's anger, whether it's at yourself or at others, if it's something you've rejected, you've been too afraid to look at, too afraid to embrace, that is really the only way forward with this energy. And that's because it's similar to threading a needle, where you've got to go through something in order to emerge on the other side. And Chiron, we know it as a dwarf planet, the wounded healer, the centaur that was abandoned and rejected by other centaurs. And Chiron was softer. Chiron was intellectual. And this was different than the violent, aggressive centaurs that were always in battle and fighting for war and showing up in these very aggressive manners. Chiron took an alternative path. And by doing so, Chiron tapped into more magic, more alchemy, more understanding of what could be experienced, what could be healed by going off the beaten path. And that is something that comes up in a very prominent way with Chiron in astrology, is that it's not the mainstream linear, this is how you do it, 1, 2, 3 path. Chiron is you go off sideways, often forced, often through a rejection and abandonment. This can also bring up themes of feeling orphaned, feeling bullied. An external life event or circumstance requires you to go off in that different direction, which then leads you to the gold of something you're really tapping into within yourself. And that is how you're embarking on the healing journey of Chiron. Chiron is located between Saturn and Uranus, and Saturn is our 3D physical world. It's our commitments, responsibilities. It's what we have to hold ourselves to, what we have to take care of, our purpose. There's a seriousness and tradition with Saturn. But then Chiron takes us to Uranus, which is more of your authentic nature, more of what you really want to do, what you feel pulsing within you that connects to your authentic frequency. And Uranus is the energy of, I don't want anything traditional. I don't want to do it the way others have told me or what I thought I had to do. And so Chiron is this beautiful connection between tradition and authenticity of who you really are. And that's what Chiron is leading you to. It's leading you outside of the status quo so that you can embrace your differences and go deeper into how you are uniquely skilled and gifted at something that you wouldn't find in the mainstream. You just wouldn't find it there. You wouldn't find it within a traditional structure, traditional education. You wouldn't find it going down the typical path. And so this Chiron, it can feel like a bumpy road, and it can bring up those fears that we even have from not only this lifetime, but multiple lifetimes about going alone. And am I always going to be alone? And am I disconnected from spirit? Am I disconnected from my God self? And why is it so damn hard? And why is it so dang challenging? Because it brings up more parts of ourselves that we have to strengthen. And in Aries, you got to do it alone. There's things you have to do on your own. No one else can do it for you. No one else can do it in the way that you need to do it. And it's in that doingness, which is Aries, it's in that doingness that you get clearer on the path. You get clearer on, this is me. Look at how much stronger I'm becoming. Look at what I'm developing. And so Chiron in Aries leads you into more of your full potential through that bumpy, winding path. And when it makes this conjunction to the North Node, nodes of fate and destiny, it opens up something that you didn't even realize you were moving towards. You didn't even know. This was on my path. This was on my journey. You aren't supposed to know until the conjunction arrives. And this is also fascinating to look at how Chiron, the wounded healer, is also the glyph of a key. It looks like the letter K, and it's the energy of the key forward, the key to your healing, the key to your new potential. I feel this as an up-leveling of something in who you are. You just didn't see it before. You didn't know. How would you know? You can only see it when you're right there, when you're in front of it. And I feel like this ignites some kind of fire. It ignites some kind of personal truth. It also supports your spiritual growth, which is Aries. In fact, every fire sign is connected to awakening, to the fire of life. It's connected to understanding what motivates you, what inspires you. And this brings in some kind of spiritual component that has your name on it, that's fated for you to understand now. So be easy on yourself. Because again, in the Aries energy, something about Aries is that you can be too self-involved. You can only see the tip of your nose. You might not understand anything objectively. You don't even have a wider perspective until you realize you need to. So the Aries energy can be too internally focused, almost like that spiral that only stays inside your energy. It never extends beyond it. So you have to make sure too that you're aware of the messages you're telling yourself, because the internal focus is highlighted, perhaps overly highlighted, self-focused to its own detriment. And this can also show up as victim energy. And that's something else to highlight with this Chiron, is that if you haven't faced something, if you haven't intentionally worked with it, doing the work, as we say, if you haven't really dealt with anything that was traumatic, abusive, harmful, painful, if you haven't had the courage to look at a vulnerability or an aspect of yourself, you could go into this victim consciousness that I can't handle it, it's too much, why me? How come I'm always the last one chosen for dodgeball? Why do I always get the hardships? Why am I always rejected? It's basically your inner Eeyore. And that voice gets loud, especially when it's not challenged. And Chiron in Aries can just be sitting in the gloomy droopiness of Eeyore because there hasn't been that challenge to say, hey, this is your life. Those are your problems. You got to face it. You got to deal with it if you want to get on the other side. Otherwise, you're going to stay in this victim frequency. Otherwise, you're going to stay sitting in this energy that will affect other things in your life, that will slow down manifestations, that will block other potential developments that would actually be really good for you. Yes, this can show up as narcissism. And to be fair, any astrology sign can have an expressed narcissism. And the thing that's interesting about narcissism is that it's actually connected to the victim energy, where you might think somebody is, oh, they're self-involved, they only care about themselves, they don't have compassion or empathy for others. And then they swing into the victim stuff, right? Of like, oh, woe is me, I'm always the last one for everything, nothing good happens in my life. But even victim consciousness is narcissism because it keeps the energy focused on self, overly focused on self. It's still like being trapped in that small aura, that small energy field. So what we're looking at here is being able to call yourself out on anything that you've been spinning in or spiraling in that has basically demonstrated a lack of courage to be brutally honest with yourself, or to not fully see how you are embodying certain energy. So with this conjunction to the North Node, something is right on time, something is opening up for you to see, something is coming through as a new awareness around your full potential, but there might be something that you have to honestly claim in order to thread the needle, in order to make it through that keyhole. And again, because Chiron's glyph is the key goes in the lock, voila, there you've got something that is unlocking in your consciousness around your sense of self and what you want to do next to take that energy forward. Now, the North Node takes us into new terrain. It's about our growth, and that can feel like a risk. It challenges us to get out of a comfort zone. So not only is Chiron conjunct the North Node, obviously it's then opposing the South Node in Libra, which could be looking at relationships that haven't fully worked for you, that maybe provided some kind of damage or injury or something that affected your sense of self in connections. It could be looking back on your own relationship patterns and habits that you weren't aware of, that you didn't even know for whatever reason were unfolding. There's something here too about being compassionate with yourself with Chiron, because we're all human. We're all fallible. And there's different parts of ourselves that we know through different experiences in our lives. But this energy wants you to come home to yourself. It also wants you to see yourself in a new light. And I feel like there's going to be some very interesting ways this energy shows up, because if you've already been working with Chiron intentionally, you've been doing the healing, you've been wanting to move through your own blocks, patterns, and habits, you've been facing some things in yourself that you're not even happy about or you don't even want to embody. Maybe there's things in yourself that you're realizing, this isn't even who I am, and maybe it's become exhausting to hold up or prop up something that isn't really true for you. It's almost like the fight, because Aries is the warrior. And so, yes, you can pull out the sword and there's things you can get done, but is it really how you want to use your energy? Is it really what you want to put yourself into or invest in? And maybe you're realizing this isn't worth the fight. This is not worth the fight for me. I don't want to put this on my to-do list. I just don't even care as much as I thought I did. And that's interesting because I'm getting the visual here of that ego unraveling, where maybe the ego, something was falsely motivating you. Something seemed so important, but it was coming outside of you or coming from an inflated sense of importance, whatever it might be. And then as you unravel parts of the false self, you tap into, but this is who I truly am. This is what I really want. And that's what I'm going to choose next. And that could set you off on this new journey into searching for more parts of your true self that perhaps you pushed away or you abandoned, you didn't realize you were good at it, or perhaps even great at it. You didn't know it would be on your path. This is also the energy of a beginning, a powerful beginning in Aries, where something new is meant to be initiated. And this could be a new life chapter, a new commitment to self. This could also feel like you're turning a page and literally entering a new book in your life, in your sense of self. There's things here that are coming up and coming through that are showing you, this is what I really want. I've never done this before. So it takes courage to take that risk. It brings up things that you're learning about yourself. And so having a beginner's mind is an asset here. Having a sense of, okay, this is new. What's going to happen? I don't know. The Aries energy will have that zest for life, that readiness for adventure, to just see what unfolds without locking into expectations and allowing things to play out in a way that continues to trust the energy, but to trust yourself. And that is one of the higher octaves of Aries, trusting your gut, trusting yourself. And as these energies are connecting here, there's something that you could feel rising up within you in a new way. And you're like, I'm trusting myself in a whole new level. I'm trusting myself for this new chapter, this new potential. Something is actually showing me where I'm at in the spectrum of trusting myself. Because if that's weak, and this takes us to the other spectrum here, where if you haven't been looking at something, if you haven't been facing it, healing it, doing the work, this can bring up a crisis. This can bring up something that is the universe showing you again, this is it. It's almost like, and of course, I don't want this to happen to you, but it's like a re-injury. You had a head injury a year ago, and now it gets bumped and bruised again. And I'm using head as an example because Aries rules the head and the eyes and the face. So be very careful with all those parts of your physical self, but also know that if the energy has not been healed, if it's still residing under the surface, especially I'm seeing anger, I'm seeing redness, inflammation, if there's any kind of blockage underneath something, you've swept it under the rug, the universe is pulling back the rug. If you didn't slow down to look at it, and that is Aries as well. Just keep moving, just keep going, put it in the rearview mirror, speed up, accelerate. You're probably going to have a U-turn. The universe is going to bring you right back to whatever that theme is, whatever that wound is that needs your conscious attention, because it's also connected to your power. Not only your healing, not only to these things that need to be worked through, but it's connected to how you will feel empowered to be yourself. So be aware that if something has been, again, pushed aside, this could be the next few months where it comes up front and center. You can't escape it. You can't get away from it. You can't accelerate past it, because the universe wants you to soften into this energy, love yourself for whatever it's been, whatever it's represented, and then to own your power with it in some capacity. Now, as I mentioned, Chiron features prominently in the Aries Solar Eclipse that is happening on April 8th, 2024. Chiron, the sun, and the moon are all exactly conjunct at 19 degrees, 24 minutes of Aries, signaling some kind of breakthrough that is a new start, because that's what a solar eclipse is. But there's something here that it's being determined by the progress you've made to date. What you've worked through, what you've healed, what I've previously mentioned, all of that comes up quite powerfully in this eclipse energy in April. So this is a story that's going to be intense in your chart, again, between 16 to 19 degrees of Aries, as you come home to yourself, to your true self, dropping the sword, dropping the ego, dropping any overinflated sense of self-importance or the world revolves around me or anger. Any of those lower Aries energies could show up for you to check in on where you're at with them. And then there could be something here as well that is going to ask you to trust yourself in a whole new way. And that can feel like a risk. Chiron conjunct the North Node requires you to look at something that is uncomfortable, that you're going to doubt in yourself. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can do that on my own. I'm not sure if that's who I am. And so part of this is to go easy on yourself, but to also note that there's always gifts with Chiron. But they're alternative gifts. They're unexpected. There's something that you're developing that you didn't see right away. And then you realize, I really mastered that. I really got better at that. I got stronger. I improved it. I'm better because of what I've been through. So we are basically moving into some heightened territory here around how we can grow into more of our true self. And this is something that you do on your own terms. This could be hidden in private. This could be something that no one knows you're going through or experiencing. This could be something that you prefer to keep to yourself, even though you're very aware of it. And if this energy is working with you personally, it could be taking up a lot of your time, energy, and mental space and physical space as you move through this Chiron theme. Now, because Chiron is in Aries, you do want to be aware of the body. What does the body need? And that's because Aries, which is ruled by Mars, is our physical self. It's how we're active. It's how we go for what we want. We take a risk. We move something forward and we put it into motion. Now, at the time of Chiron conjunct the North Node in Aries, Mars, that ruling planet, is in Aquarius and opening us up to new life visions, new parts of ourselves that we are receiving downloads about, a new knowingness. This also highlights independence and freedom, doing something on your own terms, not wanting to be restricted or told what to do. There could be something here that you're feeling is being strongly activated that you have to do. There's a determination, especially with Mars in the fixed sign of Aquarius. And then Mars is going to be conjunct Venus after this Chiron North Node conjunction. And that is a reset, which I'll be doing a separate podcast episode for you on with that Mars-Venus conjunction in Aquarius. But it is a part of this story where something is being reset internally so that you can go out and live your life with a new level of awareness. I'm also seeing it as a more expanded third eye, where there could be third eye awakenings, things that you're seeing for the first time, those visions, the imagery, the sense of clairvoyance, claircognizance, all of the clairs could be opening up, including clairaudience and clairgustance, or any of the other clairs that connect with our spiritual gifts and intuitive abilities. That could be coming wide open right now. And when any of those open, you are being asked to trust yourself more, to trust your energy more. And so that's why it's also linked to an awakening of something that you're capable of that you didn't know you could do, or you didn't know would show up for you. So these are each big themes here, February into April. This energy is up-leveling us. This energy is asking us to trust our own growth process, to trust and move into more of our own potential, and to look at anything that is stuck, heavy, or dense in the root chakra. So that could be anger and impatience, feeling impatient with your own journey or your own speed of life, feeling anger, whether that's anger in the present moment or anger from past experiences that you haven't fully healed or worked through, being competitive to the point of extreme competitiveness, as if your self-worth depends on how you show up, what you prove you can do, and being number one. That would be part of the false self of Aries, because all you can really do is be better than who you previously were, whether that was your sense of self last week, 5 years ago, 3 decades ago. The Aries journey is about learning more of how you can be the best at being you, which has nothing to do with anyone else. And so anything that is overly competitive could show you where you aren't loving and accepting yourself enough, where you're overly concerned with what's happening in other people's worlds or what you have to prove in order to demonstrate that you're better or you can be just as good. These are some of the big themes to understand here, because Chiron in Aries conjunct the North Node wants you to advance, wants you to graduate in some capacity, and wants you to see that you are capable of these new things, whatever those things are for you, whatever is showing up for you. It could be a beautiful new chapter in your healing journey. Beautiful new openings into what you really want, and living from that space, living from that sense of this is what matters to me in my life, and I'm going to have the courage and the independence to move in that direction, even though I don't know what will come up along the way. I know that I'm worth it. I know I can handle it. So there can be a reassuring energy here with this Chiron conjunct the North Node that can also show you how far you've come, especially since 2018. 2018 is when Chiron first moved into Aries, which is when this energy was opened up and initiated. We also have another reference point here of Chiron being at 16 degrees of Aries back in the middle of 2022. Chiron reached this degree point in June, July, and August of 2022. So there could be something here that's showing up for you as a checking in, as a revisiting, perhaps an ongoing theme. And as it conjuncts with the North Node, it's also moving you forward. So if it helps you to put it on that timeline, that might help connect the dots here. Do keep in mind that Chiron will not be back at 16, 17, 18 degrees of Aries. So the energy will not pass this way again, but there's still parts of the story that are unfolding and happening that won't begin until the April 8th Aries Solar Eclipse. But there's something you're going to see in a new light by then. There's something that you're going to understand and trust in a new way if you're actively aware and doing the healing work of this conjunction to the North Node. So there is a new key forward, a new key to your healing, an up-leveling of your journey, perhaps even something that you're letting go of, you're complete with, it served its purpose, you've healed through it, it's no longer affecting you, it's no longer an injury, it's no longer traumatic. And do keep in mind that that's what you could feel as well, is that you could just feel a freedom from a significant chapter in your life that required you to do a lot of healing work, and now you just feel free and clear. You've gone through the recovery process, and there's something now meeting you that takes you forward into the new chapter, new adventure, new beginning. So again, this energy will be stronger for you if you have planets or points between 16 to 19 degrees, and it will be working with all of us between 16 to 19 degrees of Aries in our natal astrology charts. The North Node is in Aries and the South Node is in Libra. So keep in mind that I have a separate program for you that goes into more of what these transiting nodes of fate are activating in your journey right now. This is very important if you have planets or points in Aries and Libra, as there are turning point energies here for you to be aware of. And because these lunar points are called the nodes of fate. There are things that are showing up for you that are right on time, that couldn't have happened sooner or earlier. So that can be a wonderful thing to trust as well with whatever is coming through for you on your journey. So do check out that program. I'll have a link below the podcast here. We examine the nodes of fate in Aries and Libra, and the idea is for you to bring your chart and follow along at these various points that are highlighted, as well as what is being triggered for you in your own natal chart. And this is more of an intermediate level course where you need to have the basics of astrology down, where you need to understand how the chart is constructed, what you have in your chart, and then you'll be able to take the information I teach and apply it to your natal astrology chart. So I hope this podcast episode has helped you connect some dots on what you are healing, as well as beginning in your life, and how it's beautifully right on time with your own growth trajectory and who you are at this part of your life. As always, thank you so much for joining me. It is a joy to connect with you through this wide world of astrology. You can find more of my current programs and courses over at mollymccord.online. And be sure to check out my YouTube channel, where you will find a ton of videos on various astrology topics and themes. And those are, of course, free resources for you to dive into your chart and understand more about your energy signature in this lifetime. As always, thank you for joining me. Wishing you a beautiful journey here as we move through these months of 2024. I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday with a new podcast episode, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Take good care.